Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we're talking Aaron Hernandez, Floyd Mayweather. Why is that name so hard for me?
Money Man.
Yeah, Money Man. That's what we're talking. Money Man and his abortion Facebook posts. Yeah, talking about that and more on Justice is Served.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Oh yeah, any excuse to use, I'm gonna knock you out. Welcome to Justice is Served on this fabulous Wednesday, March 29th. I had to look at the wall because I couldn't really believe I was saying March 29th.
Already? Wow. Yeah.
Holy schmoly.
We're 3 months into this
Q1
awful presidency. No.
It's very funny the way we all
We're
tell
almost
time.
done.
Yeah.
The quarter, how long
When
this
the 16th
presidency
into
has
the presidency.
lasted.
Yeah.
All right, and
Only 15 more
Yeah.
chapters.
And a great day for justice, I think. We've got some really great stories, cases that we're talking about here on Justice is Served. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the legal show where we talk about legal cases in the news. We're a panel of attorneys and we're having just a casual convo. So not like too nerdy legal of a convo. Like this is the kind of conversation that I hope people would want to eavesdrop into.
Yeah.
It's like four lawyers talking about what's in the legal news.
And we're the fun, nice attorneys, not the bad ones you hear about.
Yes, absolutely. And we are, myself is Chelsea Galicia. Next to me, what is she, live tweeting?
I was.
Live tweeting
there.
is
I was on
Dominique Price.
I just want you to know
Oh
I
my
wasn't
God.
texting. That's
You
like
gotta
real
be
life
careful
Twitter.
because your credit card is in the back of this. If you
Yeah.
turn it up to the camera, somebody's gonna go
Yeah,
shopping.
that's true. You don't wanna
And
do
then our
that.
next story
Okay,
that we
how
have to
about this?
cover is
Is
about
you.
High resolution cameras in here, yeah.
TV host gets her credit card cleared while on air. We also have Yemi Abayami and Shaka Smith.
Yeah.
Welcome, panel. Alrighty. Well, panel, co-host.
Now it's just your address.
Great, great, great.
I just feel like I'm not winning right now.
You just what?
She switch it for the
Not winning?
license.
Oh,
now the address
that's
is
funny.
Good.
But that's not your current address. That says Washington.
Yeah,
You don't
'cause I
live in
still have my
Washington.
Washington
We all
ID.
live in LA, which I guess, paints the show a little bit with an LA.
Flair.
Yes, exactly. But some of what we're dealing with, most of what we're dealing with, is just applicable across the country. This is not California or LA based legal news. For example, the first story that we're going to cover deals with the First Amendment, a conversation that I cannot wait to have with Shaka because I quickly think it will go into a heated, passionate debate.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yes, I've been preparing for this. Our first story is about Floyd Mayweather and his abortion social media, Facebook and Instagram posts. Yeah. I wanted to call them tweets, but he didn't tweet them. So,
They actually were on Instagram.
okay. So, he tweets. The backstory on this is kind of funny. His ex-girlfriend is seen out with Nelly, the rapper, BT Dub. What the hell happened to him?
Miss Nelly. Miss
Yeah.
Nelly.
He needs to come back.
Totally different conversation.
Okay, anyway, his ex-girlfriend is out at a basketball game with Nelly. Floyd sees this and gets pissed at it and tells the ex-girlfriend to remove any pictures that she posted of she and Nelly at the basketball game.
That's also, let's just clarify, that's also her word against his.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is true. So the allegation is that because she declined to pull down these pictures, that he took out some revenge by posting on Facebook and or Instagram. I'm not sure which one because I've read both. The real reason, let me get this correct. The real reason me and Chantal Christine Jackson, at Miss Jackson, broke up was because she got an abortion and I'm totally against killing babies. She killed our twin babies. Hashtag Chantal Jackson, hashtag Floyd Mayweather, hashtag the money team, hashtag TMT. Okay, great. So the
That
question
sums it up.
the question comes down to whether somebody has a First Amendment right to post about your abortion. And so far, and much to my dismay, so far, this is the California appeals court that's hearing it, is pretty much taking Floyd's side.
Well, yeah, the First Amendment's pretty liberal.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Right. I mean, if it's facts and it's not a lie and and he's saying it about, there's privacy concerns, of course, for like doctors exposing people's health information, but for an individual speaking facts about another
But we
individual.
still do have claims for invasion of privacy. We still have a claim called public disclosure of private facts.
So
Well, see, this is when I think you get into really murky waters because they're private facts that deal with him as well. And so it's like, this is just as much my business that I'm putting out into the atmosphere as it is yours. And so because she was actually bashing him. She said that the reason why they broke up was because he beat her. But there were no actual facts to the fact that he had actually like physically abused her. And so he was coming back and saying, that's actually not why we broke up. This is the real reason why we broke up. And so if you actually read the court documents, like it got really heated, like them going back and forth. And so a judge actually...
Can't you just say, the real reason has nothing to do with me beating her because I did not beat her?
But I think when you have people, when you're a public figure and you're a boxer, I think but let me pause and say this. Floyd has already had issues with putting his hands on his ex-wife. So the fact that she then tried to say that it was extremely inflammatory. He literally had just, I believe, gotten off of probation for domestic violence. And so I think he took it really serious into the fact that she would claim that that's the reason why they had broke up. I mean, now, because he has had a past in domestic violence, somebody reasonably could believe that was definitely the case.
And freedom of speech doesn't. I mean, you're not required to be nice or kind or a gentleman or decent
human being.
Yeah.
I think even in terms of the disclosure of private facts. I mean, as you mentioned, he's a public figure. Potentially, this lady, if she's out and about with Nelly, like she herself might be a public figure. That's what the judge said, and that relaxes the standard in terms of how much privacy you're owed.
Right.
Exactly.
Because I don't know who this woman is, I assumed that she was like a private citizen, but the judge made it a point to say that she really puts her private business out there.
And she
This is
put
the
it in
interesting part,
issue.
you guys.
Yeah.
In the court documents, they go even further to show proof that she had actually asked Floyd when they first started their relationship to help make her famous. So that was also proven as fact to the fact that she is a public figure. They also brought in They also brought in documentation of what her social media profile was prior to them getting together and after. And so his lawyer stated in the court documents that, dating someone of Floyd's status at the time he had just won his latest championship automatically puts you in the public figure. Yeah. And that she had no problem profiting from the publicity while they were together, so she had put herself in that light.
Yeah, and again, we have something in the court, if you were to put some evidence of someone's bad character, they can, put on evidence of good character.
Right.
It's the same thing kind of in general in the public forum. Once she spoke to an issue that he believed not to be true, that was about him, he can then respond with what he believes is factually true.
Exactly.
And it's protected under freedom of speech.
Exactly.
Okay, so...
But then it takes a turn, which I find to be extremely interesting. So the judge goes further in to say, while we will dismiss the defamation claim, while we will dismiss the fact that you tweeted about the abortion, what he actually gets caught up on is the fact that he tweeted the sonogram of the twins.
Yeah.
And that's what the judge said, Floyd, you've gone too far. Yeah. So he was able to dismiss pretty much the majority of the claims except for that one.
So whose claim is that? Is that the baby's claim?
Was exactly my question. But the judge decided that they said that he had also released some other medical information that went along with the sonogram. However, I was just like, is he talking about like the little information that's on the side of a sonogram?
And
that's medical
and they're medical records.
Right.
Medical records are a little bit different than just speech. Yeah.
However, this was my point, and I hope all of our audience understands this. It's one thing to put out there that she had an abortion. We can all understand how that is First Amendment protected. However, it may have been one thing for him to have held on to the sonogram for proof if she would have said him saying that she had an abortion was a lie. Yeah. That would have been different. But the fact that he went ahead and put the records out there to prove his fact was taking it a little bit too far.
And those are like technically her medical records.
And that's what he was trying to say. He was trying to say
Is a sonogram a woman's medical
record? That's what I said. No, it is though, because it comes from...
I would want proof. Like if you came to me and said, I'm pregnant with your baby.
It's your baby.
No, but the medical record, because it comes from examining the woman. Yeah, the woman's examination.
But it's also my child.
Right.
But it's still her medical...
only say that because I see people post sonogram pictures like on Instagram all
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't think twice about a father posting a sonogram
Well,
picture
yeah,
and thinking
yeah.
that
and,
he's violating the rights of his
Right.
wife.
Yeah, I mean, because he probably has that implied consent, you
Right,
know.
right.
But yeah.
Well, just because they're not together, all of a sudden it's
Well, because my
Well,
thought
now-
was
so
Well,
this.
it's still her medical record.
But my
so,
thought
yeah.
was this:
Yeah.
she gave it to him originally when they
Yeah.
were still together before the abortion took place. So it was like if she gave him the records,
What
is that
protection
not
is there
implied that I have now permission to do whatever I want with
To
this information?
publicly disclose them, I think.
So
it-
I thought
I
that
wonder
was
if
very
there's a
interesting
copyright
of their
claim in there.
argument.
Yeah.
That would have been really
Well,
interesting.
but this one comes up against a little of the Hulk Hogan sex tape.
Yes.
Right? So in that one, Hulk Hogan won the
But,
case against
yeah,
Gawker.
he was secretly being videotaped.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's what the difference was.
Yeah.
Is that he had a right to think that there was some element
Of
of
privacy,
privacy
yeah.
that should have been held. And so that's basically what the judge in this particular case leaned on, was the fact that he should not have released the medical records.
Yeah.
That he should, and he says this, he should have kept them if there was an issue of it being fact, which he says Miss Jackson has not confirmed or denied, then that would have been something to rebuke the fact.
Yeah.
But he was like, just putting it out there was taking it to an extreme level. So I'm interested to see, because it's now being kicked back down to the lower court,
Right, because
what actually the
originally
damages are going to be.
the trial judge found in her favor, and this court of
and
appeals.
they appealed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Court of Appeals got it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was interesting
I
because
knew
the
you were
Court of
gonna say that.
Appeals dismissed a lot of her claims in this one. So
Yeah. All right. Okay. So
you win some, you lose some.
I guess you won me over pretty quickly. We didn't have that fiery debate I was anticipating, because I really thought this is messed up. But her high profileness, and I don't know, the fact that she dated him in part to get her name
She said it.
and her image
And then she
out
used
there.
his weak point that she knew was like an issue to kind of, make it seem as
Entice
if he were very like guilty in
Okay,
a different
well,
way.
I'm glad I listened to the whole story before I got
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
upset about that one. Okay, shall we move on
Yeah.
to convicted murderer, former Patriot Aaron Hernandez is again facing murder trial, this time for double murder that occurred in July of 2012, where allegedly Aaron Hernandez was at a club. These two guys bumped into him. One of them spilled a drink on him. Aaron Hernandez is said to have felt disrespected. Somehow, later that evening or whatever, because early next morning,
Yes.
because who knows what
Yeah.
time, it was like 2 a.m. maybe, he finds, like, he's driving next to them. I don't think he's driving the car, but he's in a passenger in a car that finds the guys that were one of them spilled the drink on him. They're Daniel D. Abro and Safiro Furtado. And the allegation is that Aaron Hernandez takes out a gun and shoots into the car, killing both men. The reason why he's already a convicted killer is because he was convicted of killing Odin Lloyd back in 2013. That was a case that we covered pretty intensely here on this show a couple of years ago, and that one was a fascinating case. And so he's already serving life in prison.
Yeah, this is just
So I thought it was really interesting when the defense attorney was arguing with the judge, sort of in open court, and it was actually saying, Judge, like, if you want to take me into your office and rip me a new one, this is a quote, by all means do so, but not in front of this jury. And then he says, and not when this man's life is on the line. I'm like, this guy's got no life. He's basically
well no,
done.
because certainly if you get rid of this case, then you can go back to the other case and really find fault, or anything can happen. He's got life, so the lawyers can work on it. Innocence Project maybe can get involved if it's required.
I doubt the Innocence Project would get involved, but okay, fine, you're right. But this trial is sort of been bumpy so far because attorneys have gotten sick and jurors have gotten sick, so there's been a lot of delay, and the judge and the attorneys have been sort of frustrated by how slow this process is going. And now things are getting really interesting. The prosecution's put on a couple of key witnesses, the people that were in the car with him. And somehow, neither of these guys have much of a memory.
Yeah, that's what I call true friendship.
Right. I just think it's interesting that this has really come out of nowhere. Like, he's been in jail for a while, so it's not like he was on the run. I'm trying to figure out what has been the causal link to know that it was him in the first place. Like, who came forward to say that it was him that actually shot the gun that night.
Well, both of these occurred back in 2012.
Yeah, I think they linked the gun to Hernandez.
Forensically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so both of these had already happened when he faced trial for the last one.
So was that linkage between the gun from that trial and then?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I'm not even that upset. Like, okay, these friends can't remember. They're really afraid for their life. They think somebody is gonna come after them, and what do they really have to lose? This guy's going to spend the rest of his life in jail anyway.
And I think they did testify that they were drunk and high most of the time.
Yeah.
So, and
it's plausible that they really don't remember.
Quite
but
frankly,
you drive a car
if,
at least somewhat in a straight line. I mean, these people were driving cars.
And I would also say, if this is a regular occurrence or semi-regular occurrence, it had Aaron Hernandez brandished guns before and shot at people before, they may not remember this particular incident.
Right.
I mean,
well, one of them says particularly, he doesn't remember, this is a very interesting window, from February 8th to February 13th.
That was just a heavy
He
partying week.
Meth. We don't know.
But I mean, it's likely he's lying. But
I mean, right. Let's be real. He's probably lying, and he just doesn't want to say.
Yeah.
Maybe he has some access to Hernandez's money, and he feels like maybe that cash flow may stop. We don't know. Or maybe he legit was high out of his mind and does not remember this time period, and now he's sober.
At the end of the day, it's his friend. What's in it for him to his friend is already locked up in jail.
It doesn't
it's his
serve
friend.
him to.
What purpose does it serve to get involved even more?
I mean, I don't know. Is nobody afraid of being convicted of perjury?
Probably not.
With memory loss, I think that's a hard one.
And I'm sure that they
How
know
do
that
you
they're the
prove
only.
that I know?
Exactly.
But they told the police something else, which is why the prosecution put them on the stand in the first place.
Yeah.
So they must have had some memory at some point.
They probably told the police that 9 times out of 10 we were probably with him if this happened, but we don't remember this happening.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you have your group of friends that if you're going out, you know you're gonna see Stooge 1 and Stooge 2.
Yeah.
I don't have stooge friends, but okay, tell me more about this.
Well, most athletes have Stooge 1 and Stooge 2s.
Oh.
I mean, I would think they remember because it was pretty unique. The
But
occurrence.
that's the
The
thing.
murder.
There were reports.
You
in
don't
the,
happen upon a murder every
There
day.
were reports in the original case that he would shoot at people. Like he had issues with firearms. So it just
again, it could be
Issues with firearms.
It's plausible that he shot
they
so many
don't
different
remember.
times. They're like, I don't recall this particular time, and maybe they didn't even realize that people died at the time.
Shoot into
That's what I think is
Yeah,
really
they
the
didn't even
issue.
realize that people may have died. They
I
just
think
shot
he tried.
someone
I
and
think
kept
he tried to
going.
scare them and didn't know at the time that they had died.
Okay, you guys are some really good denial.
Well, no,
This isn't
advocates.
denial.
This is
I just like to.
This is the evidence we have in front of us. Yeah.
Okay. I think the jury's going to see straight through this. 2 people happen to not remember.
But you know.
And then what?
But the jury can't.
Even if the jury sees through it, then what?
There was also a forensic expert that sort of went through the
So they had.
played through.
Well, the thing is
I
that they-
have to go back and reread the original case because if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't forensics that tied him to the gun in the original murder. I could have swore it was text messages that tied him to the original.
The original murder,
The
yeah,
Odin
yeah,
lawyer.
the Odin lawyer, yeah.
It
But
wasn't
then what?
the gun.
Yeah.
So
True,
in
'cause
my
they never found the gun.
understanding, they're just saying that the 2
I thought.
ballistics are the same.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
So
That's
to
how
me,
they
I
were,
feel like
yeah.
this is already a very interesting story because he's maintained his innocence the entire time, and they never found the murder weapon.
Well, what really did him in that I remember from the last case is there was home security footage from his own house.
yeah.
That showed him holding something.
That
looked
they
like a
never
gun.
said what it
Yeah.
was.
Looked like a gun,
And
and
that-
then he destroyed his own security system.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's why.
he
And
was
I think
also
yeah.
crazy. Let's not
And-
forget that.
and I
this
think
man-
they have
That's
plan-
not a
yeah.
defense to murder.
And
No,
I'm-
it's not. I'm just saying, like.
I'm certain they have plans to go appeal that case, so that's why they really want to get rid of this case.
Exactly.
So then you're only looking at one case to get over.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because the appeal's already in for the original case
Yeah.
because the fact that they've never found the murder weapon.
What do you
So
think?
for you to try to link me to a new case for a murder weapon that y'all still don't have is very like
well,
mind-boggling.
but
to me.
remember in that old case that he had his fiance get rid of
Yeah.
a bag,
and
and she couldn't remember for the life of
now
her what
she
did
should
with
be
it.
in jail.
Yeah.
She's actually about to testify, maybe tomorrow.
Maybe
in
there's
this
a
case.
deal. Maybe she's about to tell them where she threw this bag.
Oh my gosh.
Which would then that would
Bum,
really
bum,
that would
bum.
really close the door on
Right.
everything. But yeah. But I think he's got some great defenses if he can get rid of this case in terms of CTE and whether these concussions take place.
You have got to be kidding me.
Anything that might mitigate a life sentence, you're going to have to throw at the wall. And I think he might have some really good arguments there.
How long did he play football? I don't know.
Well, his entire life up until the point. So
So now we're going. I mean, whoa. I mean, I have a lot of compassion for these people that have serious concussion and this CTE. I think it's a real thing, and I think the NFL should take it more seriously. And I would not let any child of mine be playing football under the current rules. And yet, it doesn't seem to me to be an excuse to murder. But nice try.
Well,
we don't think, at least I can only speak for myself, I don't think this is a defense to murder. I just think that they're trying to link something that is at a very, very long shot.
No, I just think when they go back to the original case, they might have defenses they can raise or maybe be able to introduce in the future depending on what the judge decides.
The link, as I understand it, is that Aaron Hernandez killed Odin Lloyd because Odin Lloyd was a witness to this double murder. And he was afraid that he was going to.
See, now I thought it was some missing money. I really have to go back, and that's what I made a note to self to go back and read the original story because I legit could not remember all the facts.
It's been a couple of years.
It's been a few years.
Yeah.
But I was like, I could have swore it was over some money and an argument.
But there is some overlap.
Because they were friends
They
at
were
one point.
friends at one point.
Well, with Odin Lloyd was dating Aaron Hernandez's fiance's
sister.
Yeah. So it was really.
And then
all
there was some
family.
domestic violence between Otis and the sister-in-law. It was a very that whole case
Tangled
was
web.
very tangled and really confusing as to what really actually happened the day of the murder.
But this jury is not gonna hear about the other murder.
But
So
anybody who has followed either sports or pays
but
attention
that was
to
jury
the news.
selection.
No. But I'm it's not hard
I would
to
be
remember.
I would be shocked if no one in that
they
jury
know that
knew that
he's
he's
in jail.
a convicted murderer.
They know he's in jail.
I was wondering that.
They know.
I don't know. It depends. If someone said his name to me and I was a juror, I wouldn't know. And I think there are plenty other people who.
I look at it like this. It only takes one juror to know.
Yeah.
For
And
the
then all
rest
of
of them to know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you can't you can't be upset at the jury for having the conversation about it, even though it's not presented even though it's not presented in
Or to
open
be
court.
like, is this the Aaron Hernandez
Yes.
that's already?
I've been hearing about it.
Yes.
Okay, we will be following that story because that's going to be interesting. All right.
And then
now,
my next question, sorry.
Oh, please.
How are they going to talk about the fact that it's linked to this other
They're
case
not.
without being able to say that he's locked up for this other murder?
I think they have to keep them separate.
Yeah.
There's text messages and conversations about the other murder
That are going to get excluded?
That the judge excluded.
Okay.
Because
Good stuff,
if
good
it's
stuff.
more prejudicial than probative,
yeah.
then you're going to keep it out, even if it's true.
Still just trying to figure out how they're linking
The standard
these two,
of relevance.
these two together.
Exactly. So so for those listening out there, that's why sometimes things get in and things don't get in.
Right.
It's always been interesting.
Spent a
case by
long time
case.
in that in law school.
Well,
I remember.
because that was
Good
always
times.
one of those rules that was,
Very ambiguous, if you ask me. It's like,
and so something that's completely
frustrating.
true may not enter in, and it might seem completely relevant, but it might just prejudice the jury so much that you can't get a fair trial.
Yeah.
All righty. Now, speaking of fair, do we think a $97 million settlement for the city of Flint is fair?
Well, I believe that this amount isn't arbitrary. Like half
For the
of the majority of the money is how much it's going to actually cost
87
for
million.
them to
to replace
and
the pipes.
all they're doing is if we know anything about a tiny bit of construction, you may start a project with one price and before you know it, you get an invoice like, oh,
Yeah,
we need another
exactly,
part.
yeah.
And so I think they were just trying to be realistic and saying, hey, it may take more, it may take less, but let's put this extra money aside just in case it's needed.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really good gesture on their part to be like, we know that
It
this
wasn't
is
a
very
nice gesture.
well-
the judge.
Well,
but so
I know,
this-
but I
Well,
like
and
that the judge took the
this,
time
there's still-
this $90 million is going to cover the cost of
to redo
Replace
the
the
entire
pipes.
water system.
So this has nothing to do with
Nope.
compensating the
No,
victims.
no.
And which is
Nothing.
why that okay, it sounds great. Judge approves $97 million settlement. Why the heck did a judge have to approve it? Why did it go to a judge? Why didn't the city do this in the first place?
Yeah, I did think it was a little bit late in coming. I was like, wait, I thought this was already.
Why does a judge need to say this? I mean, the city couldn't have taken it upon itself. The fact that it didn't and couldn't and it needed a judge, I mean, I guess thankfully there was a
Apparently
judge.
they couldn't get approval for the process, and then it turned into a media frenzy, and then the person got fired, and then it just was kind of like the interim.
And the judge has to approve a
Alright.
settlement in terms of no one being able to sue the city to replace the pipes if there's not a legal document that says this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. The other part about this that like annoys me, tell me if this is a fair thing to be annoyed
Yeah.
at, is the fact that this settlement assumes that it's going to take 3 years to fix these dang pipes.
Have you seen the construction of Wilshire?
Yeah, but when you open your
Construction
faucet,
takes forever.
I just
You guys,
And
they're
they're doing that pipe
digging
too,
up
Tyler.
the
City
they're
pipes
digging up the
underground,
ground
yeah.
and replacing like miles and miles of pipes.
listen. Do you think if this were Beverly Hills, it would take 3 years?
Yes, I think it
Maybe
might
two
take
and a half,
10.
but
I don't think so. I think they would have.
I just feel like construction takes forever.
That I can't speak to. I
Yeah, I
agree.
just
I think it
don't
takes
know.
a long time.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You're
this
going
has already been
underground.
going on
You're-
for years.
No, I agree.
no, I
like
mean,
it's
this
screwed up
should
that
have started right away, but
Like it's
yeah.
been what, a good year?
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
and now
then-
it's going to take 3 years to fix.
Yeah.
The
But I do-
other problem is that the residents wanted bottled water.
This was interesting.
And
Yeah.
they're like, no, we'll come around and make sure your filters are working.
yeah.
Yeah, they said it would be too costly to provide bottled water, which I thought was.
Come
Well,
on.
no,
right,
but
no.
on the order that you would need to provide it for the next 3 years, it could be costly, and the city does need to make sure they have emergency health services.
But the
police
city
are
could have
working.
gone out to Dasani or Aquafina and said,
Way to
hey,
give them a shout out on our show.
What I'm just saying, you could have gone to any bottled water company and said, would you provide some free
Well,
water?
no,
I
no,
guess
that's
my-
happening.
so-
That's
It is happening,
that is
but
happening.
it's like the city could have done that. You know, like
Yeah.
this actually happened out the goodness of people's hearts.
Are the filters functioning?
Some of
So
them.
they
yeah, if
say.
the filters are working
they
and it's
say.
cost effective, I think it's a good solution.
There was a Dateline
but-
special of somebody flipping it on, and it was just murky, and I was like,
Well, the
not
look does
drinking
not
that.
necessarily tell you
Boil
about the
the
safety
water.
of it.
That, you
Oy.
sound like the mayor.
yes, you do. You really do
Thank you.
right now.
Ay, ay, ay.
But-
Isn't
but
that
I-
what he said? He
Yeah,
was
that
like,
is
because
exactly
you know,
what
you
he
saw
said.
on the expose, you saw all this
Yes.
like crusty water coming out, and the mayor
He was like,
was
that
just-
doesn't mean that it's. I was like,
You
would
can't
you
judge
drink
the
that?
water by the look.
I would not
Yeah.
drink that.
If I were thirsty enough.
No.
But-
Is
no,
there
but-
any orange juice?
But I believe that the federal government, didn't they set aside also a fund for Flint as well?
I think so.
they're only kicking in about $30 million of like $100 million fund. So there's still money to be used.
Raised, yeah.
So
Okay, for some reason, this just doesn't feel like justice. It feels like justice delayed, justice denied, and I'm just
Yeah.
so annoyed.
I
that
mean,
it's
I like
taken
that it's
so
happened
long.
though. Yeah, I like that it's in
Okay.
place, and hopefully they'll move expeditiously, and there's no hiccups on the way.
Speaking of moving expeditiously, remember Laquan McDonald? He was the young Chicago guy that was killed in 2014.
I just feel like this
2014,
happened so long ago.
October of 2014. Nothing happened on this case until finally they released the video because of public demand. And then, what do you know? The officer involved in the shooting, Van Dyke, gets indicted, and now there's been some counts added. So we're 2.5 years later, and counts are being added. 16 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm to the first degree.
And first
Oh,
degree
added
murder.
that to the first degree
Yeah.
murder charges.
Okay, I was gonna
Okay,
say,
yeah.
like, wait
Why-
a minute.
Well, I think this
What-
is genius.
what is
I,
this?
I think that a defense for a police officer who has shot someone is really easy to
Get off.
overcome
Yeah,
the burden on
because
first degree murder,
Yeah.
which we've seen so many others get off on.
Yeah.
I think this prosecutor decided, hey, I'm going to be a little bit more crafty in how I present this, and I honestly think this officer will go to jail.
But so
I'm
are there
predicting it now.
no intermediate charges between the aggravated battery and the first degree murder? There's no,
there's
there's no second degree murder,
there's-
reckless endanger. I mean,
Yes.
There is a reckless endangerment, and there's also
23
a
counts, federal felony counts now. 6 counts of first degree murder. 6 counts.
there has to
See,
be
I
like
don't
a
know.
voluntary
1
manslaughter.
count of official misconduct, and now 16 aggravated battery counts.
Well, the problem
for
with
every
the problem with the first degree murder, and even the ones that are lesser included, like heat of passion, that's
no,
actually
but I'm thinking even just a voluntary manslaughter charge or
those are
there's-
just so hard to prove with police officers because they are
They have
afforded
so
this
much
idea
discretion.
of you have to
reasonableness
Yeah.
of
Of
your
their-
fear for
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
Intense
and
air
that's
quotes
very
there.
intense
Yeah.
air
very
quotes
intense.
going
Yeah.
on right now.
But honestly, like, this is why I really appreciated this prosecutor adding in the aggravated battery, because his whole point was he didn't need to shoot at him that many times because he had already gone down.
Yeah.
And so what his thought process is, after the first shot took him down, because he was shot 17 times, the other 16 were really aggravated. And so that's what he said. He went outside of his discretion as an officer.
And it's gonna
which
really...
I was like clapping,
Yeah, of
screaming
course,
when I
'cause-
read this story, because I finally feel like a prosecutor has gotten it.
And that really underscores to the jury the egregiousness of the crime.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
so.
Yes.
All right. I
Still can't believe he shot him 17 times.
17 times.
There
And
must,
he went down with the first bullet.
Yeah.
I have a feeling justice will be served in this
Me
one
too.
because
Yeah.
of that.
When it happens,
because of the lesser charges.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Champagne. I don't know. It's hard to like be so
I wanna
excited and then yet
Yeah.
I
so
want to be excited
sad
about this
still.
just because
You're like-
because here's my issue. I feel like so many prosecutors have taken it easy on these officers, and I can understand rightfully so because they work with them on a day-to-day. A lot of special prosecutors haven't actually been brought in outside of these districts,
And they want a high conviction rate.
and they want a high conviction rate. And so I'm just really excited to see that someone is really stepping up and going to provide some sort of justice to these individuals.
Especially in the Sessions era of
Well, I'm
of a
curious-
DOJ
I'm
that is going to.
curious what's going to happen, and even if he is held accountable, I'm curious as to what's going to happen in the penalty phase. Is any sentencing going to be kind of reduced or minimized by the fact that he is an offer that you
So
do have to
that's
make
the
these
interesting
quick
part. They
choices?
won't be minimized after the so from my reading, they won't be minimized because he should not have shot him outside of him going down.
And even the question of whether he should have shot him, because wasn't he
And
running
they're two
away?
separate,
Yeah.
they're two separate questions.
Yeah.
So this guy is going down.
I can't wait to sit
I'm
back
always
and watch
skeptical.
Yeah.
I'll
I'm
wait till
trying,
we have
I'm
with
to-
trying
reason,
so hard to be
yeah,
optimistic that there really truly is justice
But this
in
one,
America.
yeah, this one was so.
I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, it was so.
but-
It was such an outcry, and he was charged pretty immediately after the tape was released. And so I think adding these charges kind of speaks well for the way it'll go.
But I do feel like these tapes should be released right away. It bothers me that it's such a fight to just get the tapes released.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
isn't
were-
the city of Chicago? I'm not sure if it's Chicago, but I thought the city of Chicago was actually trying to institute certain laws to remove the
Now.
Impediment.
to reduce the release of
Oh.
these FOIA requests or requests for
Yeah, it's
videotapes.
not even
They
just
were actually-
Chicago. A few.
Yeah, well, a few had actually made moves to make it easier to get the tapes, and then, but now we're in this interesting era where now they don't really have to comply or do that anymore. If they don't want to.
just
I think they were being
remember-
pushed by the DOJ before under Holder.
Yeah.
I just remember some jurisdictions introducing legislation that would make it more
Yeah.
difficult for these videos to be released for fear of prejudicing the officer and harming harming his kind of credibility amongst his peers.
Yeah.
This is true. Okay, and then this is less great news, but I mean, I guess it took a trial, an internal trial for police officer Richard Haste to quit his job as an NYPD officer once he was found guilty on all accounts and recommended that his employment be terminated for his shooting of unarmed teenager Ramarley Graham in 2012.
Yeah, let's say it again. 2012.
Yeah.
And he just resigned Sunday. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me is just ridiculous.
Yeah, so yay that he's gone, but again, when it takes so long,
Yeah.
you lose faith in the justice system.
Was his resignation based off of a newly released tape?
No,
what was
he,
No, he just lost
he was
his
found guilty of this internal
disciplinary trial. So
Oh,
before he could be,
so the internal investigation took 5 years? Or
Yep.
4.5
yeah,
years?
Yep.
and so before he could be
Yep.
fired, he decided to resign.
So my question was when I read this was I wanted to figure out how old he was because to me it sounded like a pension issue.
yeah.
Oh.
That's like the first thing that came to my mind, but I couldn't
So
figure
you
out.
thought that
I
I
they
couldn't find out how old he
you
was.
thought that the NYPD was trying to let him stay on long enough to where he would qualify for a pension.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's smart thinking and evil. But so this officer had told investigators that Graham had his hand in his waistband. Of course, they never found a weapon, and he had fired one round that hit him in the chest. Somehow he's not in jail.
Nope.
Yeah. And
Because he actually was never formally charged with criminal charges.
Yeah, they said they didn't have enough evidence. And
So I was just trying to figure out how this internal investigation found him guilty, but there was not enough evidence to bring it to trial.
well, I mean, obviously they're not necessarily governed by the rules.
Right.
of,
But it just
you would
seems like to
think-
me that police officers have such a code of like we're gonna stick with you, and we believe, you know, your
version of
events. So it was interesting to me for his own peers to find him guilty.
Yeah, and this guy was shot in his own bathroom.
Yeah.
So after they pursued him into his own bathroom. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Really sad.
It just
Another sad story, but this
you're
one,
not even
a
safe in your
police-
bathroom.
Yeah.
I know. That is terrible. Okay. On the flip side of this, Memphis's first female police officer killed in the line of duty had her murderer sentenced recently to 40 years in prison. It was 25-year-old Trevino Campbell that was sentenced for 25 years for second-degree murder in the 2012 shooting. Look how long these things take.
But that's like a trial. It's like
Yeah,
a that's
this
like
is
a
a real
real legal.
trial.
Yeah.
Yeah. The officer's name was Martoya Lang. She was a 32-year-old mother of 4. Campbell was also sentenced to another 8 years for attempted second-degree murder, 6 additional years for using a firearm while committing a felony, and 1 more year on a marijuana count. That part is ridiculous to me, but okay, whatever. So it wasn't really 40 years for killing her. It was more like 25 years for killing her. 25 years sounds pretty standard.
For felony murder.
Anybody surprised or disappointed or had any interesting thoughts on this one?
Well, yeah. I mean, this officer was
he's gonna
killed.
be eligible for parole in what, 10?
Well, the officer was killed
12?
when the officers rushed into Campbell's home to serve a warrant on someone that wasn't there.
Yeah. That was the whole defense in the first place.
Yeah.
Is that she was part of a team that was going to execute a search warrant. And his defense was, I was so rattled, I was scared, I was afraid I was being robbed.
They
That,
didn't-
to
did they
me,
identify
Which
I
to
themselves?
me,
Yes, that's what they said.
I totally like low key like kind of understood his
Yeah, where
defense
he
because
was
I was
coming
like,
from.
that's like really kind of scary. I couldn't imagine people rushing into my home because your sensor is so on overload. They
Yeah.
may have said it, but you're still like in that shock mode.
Yeah.
So I understood why he only got
And they don't
25.
come in like, oh, by the way, we are here with a.
It's no nice
yeah,
knock.
It's not like
it's
a
like
yeah.
those big black things, and it's like boom.
Yeah.
and
But
Did they identify themselves?
that's what they said.
They said they did.
He
But
says they did
says
not.
that he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't hear them identify themselves.
And it was 6
He
of them that
heard,
rushed in.
Yeah,
So
he
like,
said he just heard the commotion.
so to me, I'm not quite sure if justice was served here.
Yeah, I mean, this guy says Trevino Campbell at sentencing says he didn't mean for this to happen, that he's not a bad person. This is a
I
nightmare
don't
for him
disagree.
too.
No criminal record, and
That's true.
And again, they were there to serve someone who wasn't there. It wasn't him. So and
Well,
no
and then
criminal
my
record.
question was, what was the link between the person that should
Yeah.
have been at the house and this character? Because I was like, well, if this was like, maybe some improper relationship, maybe some drugs, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
This
then
to
I
me,
was
Well,
like, well, why was this person supposed to be at your house
Yeah.
in the first place? Like, what was the relationship? They always say
So
like,
this guy wasn't a guy who went out to try and kill a police officer.
right, and I think that's what the story kind of got. To me, when you first read the headline, like officer killer,
And
Yeah.
do you think that it made a
Sentenced.
difference, the fact that this was Memphis's first female officer, that played into whether he was
Oh, for
convicted
sure.
and whether he was
I
given more
think- I
time?
think
I think
so.
either way, police officer. I think they were going to go for him.
This was Memphis's first female officer, or Memphis's first female officer who was killed?
Killed in the line of duty.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
You were like, wait.
yeah, I was like, no, let me.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah,
I mean,
thanks for
I
that
think
clarification, yeah.
I think it's to the extent that there was a confusion or he didn't hear it. I think it's unfortunate that he doesn't get the same benefit of the doubt that, for example, an officer gets
Yeah.
when they,
That their life is
That
in
is
fear.
that
yeah.
was a really good point. That is a really,
And
really
what
good
did
point.
the judge said? Mr. Campbell just randomly started shooting his gun. Mr. Campbell had ample opportunity to make decisions. So it seems like the judge understands that this guy was shooting his gun in random abject fear. So I don't understand again why that random abject fear of his life being lost doesn't kind of protect him in some way.
particularly when it's happening in the home, because all of us know that in criminal law, you do have
Yes.
certain additional protections
In your
in
home.
your home.
Stand
when
your
someone's
ground in
intruding
several
into
different
your
states. Yeah.
right when someone's intruding into your
This
your
would have
home,
been
you
very
have additional
interesting if this was a
protections.
stand your ground state, and how
Yeah.
this would have kind of.
Oh, that would have been.
Yeah, this
very
would have been really,
interesting.
But
really
I think
interesting.
law enforcement.
No,
is
but
shielded,
that's the
yeah.
thing, though. Law enforcement is shielded from the stand your ground. But if
Yeah.
I'm in my home and I know I have a right to protect myself, and I go
Then
on
you
a
have to take
shooting
my
spree,
mindset into
right,
account.
you have to take my mindset
And it's-
into account. So
yeah.
it's kind of very, very interesting. So I would honestly like to see his attorney appeal this,
I think
just because I feel like I feel like given the circumstances, I just don't know if.
And I think he might have some good chance of success in the appeal because just the way that Beasley says you randomly started shooting, that almost speaks to your kind of mental state at the time. So
will be interesting to see if that happens. All right. We actually have time to cover a story that we've been meaning to cover before. This one, a Canadian judge resigns after he asked a rape victim, "Why didn't you just press your knees together?"
I'm sorry.
I purposely wanted the awkward silence to be like, who's going to react to this one?
Well, this actually reminds me. I don't know if you guys saw the Don Lemon segment where one of the Cosby accusers perhaps was speaking about being violated or forced to do fellatio, and he was basically, as a newscaster on live television, "Why didn't you bite it?" or something.
Well, because I'm like, to me that was a hard one. Like, how do you force someone to give you head? Like, I just don't. You guys, I'm trying so hard not to laugh because like that's
these
sad,
are awful
but
issues.
It's awful, but I'm just like, I don't see how someone can force.
But-
Like, there's no gun. There was no weapons.
But people do have these
but
thoughts
you're
that
afraid
you can squeeze your knees, and there wasn't there one senator who said, aren't there ways to shut that whole, a woman that got pregnant off of a rape, and he said, aren't there ways to shut that whole thing down?
Yeah.
If it is rape, you can't have the child. Like, there are people who think these types of things, and here we go again.
And this victim was 19 years old, and he asked her, why didn't she keep her knees together? And then also asked her why she didn't skew her pelvis to avoid penetration.
These are issues I think that
you're
not
speaking
everyone,
for all mankind right
well,
now,
no,
Shaka.
and I think to some degree that there are certain issues we necessarily don't understand.
To me, it sounds like maybe he does think maybe this has happened to him before. I've tried to force myself on somebody, and she moved her pelvis and she squeezed her knees, and I couldn't do what I was trying to do.
Well,
This is
that's
not
how
funny.
I read that.
This is not funny.
No, but I think that speaks a little bit to male privilege and why we have to do more to reach out to females and back and forth and find out these issues, because this one's a little bit more egregious, but there are incidents of rape and date rape that I think as males we don't quite understand. So it's the onus is on us to really.
He's essentially victim blaming.
Yeah, no, there is.
He's essentially victim
But
blaming.
when he said, the judge said about himself that he had an unconscious bias.
Yeah, of course.
Of what?
Right.
As a male, there's an unconscious bias. There's an idea
I do think when it comes to rape that men generally have like an unconscious bias, like
that it
can
didn't
make this
happen?
stop.
And
Yes.
there's some idea that, especially if you're not like a violent rapist criminal,
Yeah.
so there's an idea that if a woman is going to be raped, that she could somehow stop it because it's a matter of like it's a technical matter. So you think she can move enough or do enough to stop it. And
Right.
that just-
I remember reading a case in college where a woman said no after she had already like initiated sex, and she said it was rape after, and the accuser was really confused. He was like, but like 5 minutes before that she was really like into it, and yes, she did say no, but I thought it was like a game.
And so I think there have. This is more egregious than that.
Wait,
but yeah,
right.
But we have these discrete issues that require some sort of communal understanding and talks like this that hopefully help.
This was an interesting statement by the judge during that trial. He said, quote, I want you to tell your friends, this is what he said to the perpetrator, I want you to tell your friends, your male friends, that they have to be far more gentle with women. They have to be far more patient, and they have to be very careful to protect themselves. They have to be very careful.
I don't necessarily disagree with his statement.
The judge is probably someone who would never even think of raping someone.
Yes.
So that's why his mindset's like, if I were to rape someone, I would just be
But
holding
the
them.
fact that he says to protect themselves, they have to, that the guys should protect themselves.
Because you don't want there to be some mistake.
And that, I think
where he's thinking that she wants
it.
This
case was about him thinking it was a good idea and her saying no.
The judge is just a really nice person who doesn't understand the
think
nature
so,
of rape.
too.
That's what I think it's
He's
for.
never seen Lifetime.
Exactly. He doesn't really understand.
Okay, so at least he
said with a Canadian
resigned.
judge, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
right.
Things are nicer up there. But
and and he actually resigned.
he said, "Oh, I didn't understand." So
most American judges would still be on the bench.
like, holding on to power.
That's exactly true.
Me.
So I think he realized.
So I do think he was very. I think he was very remorseful of what he said. I think he generally didn't mean malice in his intent in saying it. And I just think it was really unfortunate. And I think it goes back to what you're saying, Shaka, about needing some type of training, because I don't think he meant any
And I
harm.
think when we look at like the Brock Turner judge, I think the judiciary needs certain sensitivity training, especially when it comes to issues, whether it's minority issues or minorities of all kinds, females, blacks, everyone.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be some sort of training to cross those lines amongst police.
Yes.
But we'll see what the DOJ does.
Right, that's a good place to hang your hat.
But
Right.
I mean, that's a good place to start. But so hopefully, I don't think it'll ever happen with this DOJ. But I think that kind of training nationally is needed for our entire system.
judicial
Yeah.
system.
I think you're right. All right, let's leave off on a note of agreement. I like it. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks everybody for watching. If you want to like, comment, what are
Subscribe.
subscribe. That's a fun
All
thing to
those
do.
Yeah.
Tweet at us. I'm at Chelsea Galicia. Wanna go down the line?
At Dominique P_ESQ.
I'm at @YemYems on Twitter and Instagram.
And I'm Shaka Strong on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat.
And make sure to come back next week for another episode of Justice is Served. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.